Hey everyone, and thanks for joining. Hope you're all having a great NAB 2019. We're here on the Scale Logic booth, and today we're going to talk about some of the common hurdles and tasks that people have when they're doing the simplest of things, which is ingesting their media, transcoding their media, and then attempting to deliver their media. And everyone's got kind of the same types of problems. I am hoping to kind of clarify some of them and maybe talk about some of the tools that fix those problems. So if we're to look at the general process, it kind of all starts the same way. Someone goes out and they shoot. That results in a bunch of media, and you can see there at the bottom that that media can either be, in a file format or directly from a camera, or a bunch of hard drives, let's say, that have camera footage on it. And then usually, not always, but usually, you're going to want to take that stuff and put it in some sort of mezzanine format. Nowadays, editing stations have evolved to the point where you don't necessarily have to do that. You can edit natively, for example, in Premiere in a lot of cases. With an Avid ecosystem, you are likely going to want to transcode that. And at the same time, you're going to want to archive that material. So you push from your ingest process to your transcoding device and then to archive. That transcode process will then write straight to your storage. And that's where a company like Scale Logic can come into play. And there's a big green storage box there, but that doesn't explain the complexity behind that storage. And I'll go through that in a bit more detail. From that, you have your edit process. And there's two arrows from the edit because you have the whole online, offline relink process that is involved. And I'll also go through more detail in that. The transcode goes to your MAM. That's going to manage your metadata. The edit also goes back to your MAM. From your MAM, you spit back to the transcode, and then you deliver. So to go through some of these steps, let's start here. So there's a lot of hurdles that people face, and these hurdles are pretty common throughout everybody's facility. You have too many formats. You have too little time. You need people who aren't paid that much money to be able to ingest this media. There's a lot of steps in each of these productions, and they all have varying requirements. So if we talk about the formats, these formats have a lot of variables. You have all your different manufacturers, and then you have all your different formats that these manufacturers record in, and then you have all the different codecs that these formats that these manufacturers record in can be presented to you. And you need, again, some easy way to get that stuff into your pipeline, the same way, repeatable, et cetera. So if we talk about a typical ingest workflow, it would look something like this. So on the front end, there's a few ways to do it, but you could have, for example, people just submitting from a watch folder or using some sort of logging software to add metadata. They can submit those to transcode, and then that stuff can get rewrapped or edited natively inside an NLE. So this workflow varies slightly, and I'm going to talk about Premiere and Avid primarily, but it varies between the two. So in an Avid workflow, generally people, let's say in a non-PAM world, people will make a high-res version and a low-res version. The high-res version will go into what's called the online storage, and the low-res version goes into the offline storage. So the whole point of that is to give editors and shared editors a easy way to edit with low-res proxies, and then come back and relink to the high-res automatically once done. In an interplay environment, you can check both those into your interplay, and then automatically link between the two resolutions. At the same time, you may want to make non-editing proxies, so you can make little H.264s that have burn-in, for example, and upload those straight to maybe a cloud service of sorts and something that people can just view on a regular Mac or PC. And then once you finish your edit, you can create your consolidated media and then link back to your low-res or to your high-res media. In the storage side, I did mention online and offline. So the things you're looking for on the online side is, one, enough space, for example, to store your camera natives, or your high-res transcodes, or both. The reason for that is you'd want to be able to conform back to those once you're done editing on your low-res. It doesn't have to have the same performance as your offline storage necessarily because you'll be editing directly in the proxies. The offline storage needs to have a fast connection. It can generally be something like a scale logic whereby it's easily expandable. And this is designed for your lower resolution proxies, but you do need a fast connection. On the Adobe side, like I said, it's very similar. People will often edit natively on Adobe. I'm assuming there's a lot of Adobe editors here. But we would, again, want to copy that card to your nearline storage. We want to copy that off to archive. Encode high res. You could encode proxy and then have the relink process manually done within Premiere. And at the same time, you can, again, upload timecode burned in copies. On the archive side, and that was a step to the bottom left of the workflow, that's really important as you want to have backups of all your media. It's often a mandate. And your choices are varied, but often people are backing up to something like an LTO, maybe using a product like Storage DNA or something along those lines. And you'd also want the ability to track that metadata within your MAM, which I'll get to next. And on the MAM side, again, very important. And this is different than your PAN. This is different than your interplay. Here you're tracking metadata assets from your sources. You can also track things like graphics, stills, other data, shoot logs, etc. But you want to, throughout that process, make sure that your MAM is tracking the media from start to finish with all the metadata. And that could be media that people have added on site. It could be media they've added in the facility, or it can be metadata that they've actually gathered from the camera itself. On the file delivery side, that also becomes a complex task because you have lots of people asking for different things. You want people who are non-technical to be able to deliver, maybe directly from their NLE. And it's not just making your output formats, it's actually getting them to their locations. And there's lots of mechanisms out there to do that. And the common process is export from your NLE, transcode to your deliverables, do an automated or visual QC, verify that that QC has passed successfully, and then deliver. You have two options that I mentioned. You can deliver directly from your NLE, but there are problems with that. So if you're sitting there on your Media Composer or your Premiere doing transcodes, it's eating up valuable editing resources. It also allows for human error because there's too many choices for them to make. And then it's also single-threaded. The one pro is someone who's editing knows how to use their Media Composer and knows how to export from their Media Composer or from their Premiere system. The benefits of a third-party transcoder are you have the ability to design complex workflows whereby an editor can just click a single button and spit it off to that transcoder. It's going to perform much better at transcoding than an NLE, as it can do, for example, 4 or 5 or 6 jobs at once. It's more flexible as it's constantly being updated with latest codecs, etc. And it can not only do the transcoding, but it could do things like deliver your files via Spera. It could do things like pass to a QC process. It could do things like upload straight to YouTube automatically. And when we come to QC, there's 2 ways that people do it, or they do it both ways. So you have your visual QC side. The problem with visual QC is there's human error, and it's slow, right? It's always real time, and it's not going to check for technical elements. On the automated QC side, I'm sure no one's sitting there watching it, but it catches most things depending on the package you choose. So there's packages out there such as VidChecker by Telestream, Baton by Atera, Aurora by Tektronix, and all these products work very similarly, but they're going to sit there, they're going to analyze based on a test plan you've set, and then auto-generate reports. You can send those reports to customers to give ultimate confidence, and it's going to be faster than real time. And then coming out of your Adobe or your Avid, as I mentioned, there's tons of formats. So you have your ingest formats, but then you have people asking for all these different things on output. So formats like ProRes, you want to be able to mux it into transport streams, deliver IMFs, deliver XD cams, but having the flexibility to do that whenever a customer requests something strange is really important. And then you also have to send that stuff out. And if someone's sitting there manually sending that stuff out, it's really time-consuming and expensive to have to do that. Doing things like frame rate conversions, if you're sending to a different country or region, uploading straight to Netflix, sending to Amazon, sending via Spera to YouTube, etc. These are all common tasks, and the ability to automate that stuff is really important. And just to go back to the main process again. So you start with your ingest, where you have your camera formats. You proceed to some sort of workflow tool whereby it's taking your media, transcoding it to your necessary formats. At the same time, it's going to send that off to your LTO system. Again, these are all steps that everybody has to do. Send that off to your LTO system. At the same time, send metadata straight to your MAM. Take that transcoded media, send it to your online and offline storage. Push to your edit suites with all the metadata that came directly from here. Do your offline edit, relink to your online, export that stuff straight back to your MAM, where it's tracked all that metadata and now that asset is cataloged. From your MAM, give it back to the transcoding engine, and then have that transcoding engine or workflow tool automatically deliver with the preset template of the format of your choice and sent directly to YouTube, Spera, whatever that might be.